KDB Insights Enterprise on Microsoft Azure represents the industry's first Data Timehouse, a new architecture that accelerates data warehouses and data lakes by adding time-critical processing of temporal datasets. With native integration to Azure services, including Azure Event Hubs, Data Factories, Synapse Analytics and Power BI, KDB Insights Enterprise on Microsoft Azure is the world's most powerful vector database for ingesting, enriching, analyzing, and visualizing machine-generated data faster than ever before. In this demo, we will look at an IoT example, consuming live sensor data from MQTT and batch data from an Azure Data Lake. Our goal is to detect anomalies in the manufacturing process and prevent unplanned machine downtime. To begin, we will connect our Azure Data Lake to an Azure Data Factory so that we can run a large-scale ETL pipeline for our historical data stored in Parquet format. From the Azure Data Factory, we will create a new trigger, specifying the trigger name, type, subscription, storage account, and blob suffix. Next, we will create a new Azure Data Factory pipeline, selecting the copy data tile from the activities menu and pointing the source to our Azure Data Lake. We can then define an output sync and convert our Parquet data file to CSV. Orchestrating data pipelines with KDB Insights Enterprise on Microsoft Azure is easy. To begin, let's define a pipeline to ingest the data that's hosted in our Azure Data Lake. Next, we can add a schema and specify the field names and data types that we wish to write to our database. Finally, we will add a writer node, define our table names, and deploy. Now let's create a second pipeline for real-time streaming data via MQTT. To do so, we will click on the MQTT tile and specify the broker and topic that we wish to subscribe to. The data is streamed in JSON format, so we will decode in our pipeline and publish it to our in-memory database for low latency processing. Great! Let's now see how we can apply a trained neural network model to compare the MQTT feed against historical plant behavior. In this instance, using a pre-trained TensorFlow regression model hosted on Azure Object Storage. Notice in this instance how the model predicts the expected temperatures during the cycle, helping the manufacturer adjust where necessary and ultimately maximize yield. Let's now look at how we can build time series analytics from the built-in query engine. From our query window, we will execute a simple SQL command and retrieve our sensor data from the KDB Insights Enterprise database. Next, we will use the Q programming language to define a bitemporal as of join and retrieve the statistical control limits of our sensor data. Notice how we can easily output this data directly into a console window, format it into a table or output it as a visual representation. But the real power comes from our integration with industry standard tools such as Python and Azure Databricks notebooks. Let's switch to Databricks and explore. With a simple connection into KDB Insights Enterprise, we will execute an SQL query to retrieve the data, followed by Python to generate our data frame for analysis. Notice how we can quickly learn the correlations in our data, in this instance the flow rate, pressure and temperature of the plant environment. We could also graph the output to show variability throughout the day, including temperature deviations and time history trends. Building on this, KDB Insights Enterprise on Microsoft Azure comes with its own fully featured visualization and reporting dashboards. Familiar to any user of Office software, components are easily dragged onto the central canvas and then modified via a property inspector. In this instance, we will use a simple SQL query to highlight standard deviations. Notice how we can quickly visualize both our historical data and MQTT stream, filtering where needed to retrieve the upper and exceedance limits of our control sensors. But we can also fully integrate with other BI tooling, including Tableau, Grafana, HeidiSQL and Power BI. To find out more, search for KX on the Azure Marketplace or kx.com to request your free 30-day trial.